Oh, good morning and welcome back here to Talking Your Walk. And I've got a wonderful guest today again. I've got the wonderful Keith Higgs with us, and you may know Keith because he wrote the book, The Little Book of Love. And that is basically all you'll need to know about Keith as such, because that's where his heart comes from. So without any ado for me, I'm just going to hand right over to Keith. So hello, Keith, and thank you so much for joining me. It's lovely to see you again.
Oh, thank you. It's a real privilege to spend some time with you and the people that are going to watch this.
Oh, thank you. So can I ask you, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Hastings, south coast of England, and grew up in Bexhill-on-Sea, which is the next little town about 5 miles away from Hastings.
Oh, what a wonderful place to grow up.
I love the sea. It's part of me in a way.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. And then, you know, when you were at school and getting, did you excel at any subjects? Was there anything that particularly, did you enjoy school?
I was dyslexic, and in that day and age, they didn't understand what that was. So I was just considered to be thick. And my parents had great hopes for me to follow in my father's footsteps as an architect, but it wasn't going to happen. I could barely spell. It took me a long time. I had tutors that they paid for to help me. They put me in a private school. And then when they realized I'd flunked the 11 plus completely, they basically gave up on that idea and put me in public school. So I had a pretty miserable childhood. I really didn't feel like I fitted in this world. And really had hardly any friends. I just was a bit of a loner, and it was tough those years. It was tough.
And it's amazing now that you're now an international selling author.
I know, it's incredible. Just proves it's not me.
Absolutely. You know, I just wonder what your teachers would think now. And that would show me great strength of character, wouldn't it? So you've got through the school. When you left school, what did you get into? What did you do? Did you go to work or?
I went to Hastings College, technical college, on a computer course, because the one thing I was halfway as good at was maths, statistics, and technical drawing, strangely enough. And so I scraped into the computer course in the Hastings College. I used to drive there on a little Honda 50 and became secretary of the Students' Union and organized some of the dances. I booked Desmond Decker to play on an all-nighter in Hastings Pier. I got into having a mobile discotheque, and the college probably would have thrown me out for not studying properly if it wasn't for the fact that I was social secretary of the Students' Union for a while. Yeah, amazing times. Had a lot of fun playing cards and running the college radio station in the canteen, not really studying much. But it was in a day where you had to type holes in a card. There was no computer in the first year of the computer course in the entire college. And they used to take these punch cards to the local Ministry of Defense computer, run them and bring us back our work to tell us you had to retype one card because there was a hole in the wrong place, you know. So the second year, they were actually going to get a terminal in the college to a real computer.
I mean, I remember the days of punch cards, you know, where I worked, they had a room this size to basically hold the account details of one of our clients. But so you get into computers. So when you left the college, you know, and your love of music as well, but when you left the college, did you go into work or did you continue in the musical path?
No, I was a bit of a hippie. I was, by that time, dropped out. I only ever had one job, official job, which was wiring telephone exchanges for GEC. And they actually fired me because I made the mistake of telling the boss and the foreman how to solve a problem that they couldn't solve. And a week later, they found an excuse to fire me. And I went home singing in the rain as a happy hippie because then I could actually be free.
Oh, that's amazing. That's wonderful. So in this newfound freedom, what did you do?
A number of certain substances. And on a particular journey, a substance-related journey, I decided that my purpose in life was to find God. And I vowed to go on a journey to find God, which actually led me to 9 months of complete frustration, looking for God in every way I thought possible, whether it was reading every religious book that you can imagine, from the normal ones, the Bible, the Quran, the Bhagavad Gita, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, to the weird and wacky ones, Was God a Spaceman? And Timothy Leary's work and things like that. It was a journey of total frustration because I wasn't finding God anywhere. Anywhere I looked. I ended up back in my parents' home for a while. I think it was winter and I couldn't kind of live in my tent with my cat any longer because it was just too cold. And they were frustrated with this weird hippie and sent me to the local vicar. And the local vicar didn't know what to do with me. We had a bit of a theological discussion and he eventually kind of thought, I know what I'll do. Go and see the Catholics. Why don't you go on retreat in a Franciscan monastery? Which I did.
Wow.
And so I was a week in a Franciscan monastery. And the last day I remembered walking with this young kind of hippie-like monk and pouring my heart out saying, listen, I've been looking for God. I'm not getting anywhere. How do I find God? And this was in tears with this young guy. And he took me back to the chapel, pulled back the chairs in the chapel and taught me a yoga sequence to the Lord's Prayer and said, do this every day. So I went home, back to my parents' home, and my bedroom was too small to do that sequence, so I did it in the hallway. And my parents were even more freaked out by that than they had been before. And they said to me, what are you doing? You go crazy. You know, come on. I said, listen, you sent me to the vicar who sent me to the Franciscans who told me to do this every day, so I'm going to do it because I need to find God.
You'd be sitting wondering, what have the Catholics done to him now?
Yeah, really. Anyway, it wasn't long before my parents got completely fed up with me. I won't go into all the fine details, but they decided to throw me out.
Yeah.
And I went to my room after this discussion, which was quite heated, and cried. Not because I needed to leave, because I'd lived away and that didn't bother me, but because that was the third time they'd shown me that they didn't love me for me. They loved me for what they wanted me to be. And when I wasn't going to be that, they didn't want to know anymore.
Wow.
And I cried desperately. And then I got mad with God. And I said, listen, I've been on this search now. It's not going anywhere. You and I are over unless something happens. And that breaking in tears, and in the middle of that, I lifted my hand up to the bookshelf above my bed. And there was a row of every religious book I'd ever been able to find. And without looking, without knowing what I was picking up, I picked up the Bible. And I opened to the 27th Psalm. And it said, in the middle of that Psalm, when my mother and my father forsake me, then God will take me up. And it said, one thing have I desired, that will I seek after, and spoke about a journey of finding God. And it ended with, wait on the Lord, be of good courage. And I knew for the first time in that 9 months that actually I'd had contact with the divine.
Wow.
And a week later at a pop festival, I met some people that were singing and dancing and feeding people. I had to break through an incredible barrier of fear just before I met them. Panic attack, which I'd never had in my life before. And I stood in this festival holding the center post of a marquee, shaking like I couldn't even stand up. And I finally said, I'm not afraid of anything. What is stopping me meeting these people? And I marched up and joined a community that grew into a worldwide community, helping people, feeding people, singing to people all over the world. And that was the next 20 years of my life.
Wow. So what, can I ask what community you joined then?
It was a Christian-based community called the Family of Love.
Right. Wow.
And I lived in England, in France, in Holland, in Poland, in Peru, in India, in Sri Lanka. Got married, had children, all over the world, and took a
Wow.
family all over the world.
So that's an amazing journey, isn't it? From sitting in despair in the family home in the south of England to traveling the world with a family of people and doing what I would say was very compassionate work, wasn't it? You know, feeding people, singing to people and that. So that took you on that journey. You went round the world. So what brought you back to England?
Well, my children grew a bit too big to drag around the world any longer. They needed their own life, and living in a foreign country as teens in a small community where they didn't really know anybody outside wasn't working for some of them. And so we ended up coming back to England, and I had to leave the community, and I set up a business from nothing. Literally, when we got back in England, we had 2 suitcases that were broken by the airline, and I think they gave us 150 quid in compensation, and that was the money we had. And over a period of time, I built a computer business, because at the end of that journey, I'd been persuading people to donate computers and helping people use them in the third world to help their work.
Wow.
That computer business went from selling a secondhand computer that I bought to 2 to 4 to 8 to 16. And about 8 years later, hit my target of £1 million turnover.
Wow. And that's quite an achievement, isn't it? From this little boy through to you'll never be anything, through your parents. You know, did you ever get back in touch with your parents when you opened the business and things like that?
It was a few years later when we moved into this. I mean, Spirit gave me this beautiful house. I just know that what I'd given away all those years was given back to me. And I suddenly was living in this incredibly beautiful mansion that some years later was valued at £1 million. And when I was living in there, it was perfect for my business because there was a barn and a workshop behind. And miracles happened to even get that. It should have been impossible to get that and to buy that. And my father came to my marriage, which we held the second part of the celebration in the garden in a barbecue. And he looked at me and he said, wow. And that was a beautiful moment, a touching moment.
Yeah. I mean, and I suppose maybe some of their concern was based out of fear as well, wasn't it? Fear of what was going to happen to you.
Our parents live in a different world, a world that was handed to them by their parents. And they were told, study hard, get a good job, become successful. And that was life then. And it still is many people's programming.
Yeah.
So they did the best that they could. And I love them, and I've forgiven them in my heart for some of the things that were tough for me then. They didn't understand this poor kid that couldn't read or write and had great expectations for me, and I failed that expectations.
And that you know, is in a way them closing doors for you opened up a whole new world for you, didn't it, really?
Well, I think there's 2 ways we can handle problems. We can handle oppression. We can handle what seems like the end. We can give in and just want to give up, or it can make us fight, and it can make us strong. And if we believe that life loves us, if we believe that there's something greater than us, then it can happen, and we can find that inner strength. We can find that strength from a deep place within our heart that will hold us in spite of everything falling around us. And the next step in my journey was everything fell around, because I was very rapidly going bankrupt some years later when the computer industry completely changed and there was no money to be made anymore. Computers were suddenly a commodity that went up and down. And if I didn't sell computers that week, they were probably worth less than what I paid for them.
And that shows you how things quickly can change. How did you adapt then? So, you know, the business is going bankrupt. That takes, you know, that's quite a scary time for some people. So how did you adapt to that? Where did you get the strength to get through that?
Well, I had to. I was supporting, I think, about 10 children, some from my first marriage and some from my partner's marriage at the time. And I couldn't just give up and curl up in a corner and disappear, because money had to come in. Otherwise, we'd have lost the house. We'd have lost everything. And by another one of those miracles that life gives us, I had towards the end bolted on something that I thought would help my customers. It was a company that looked after broadband and different other utility services. And I'd been looking to work with a company that would help my customers who were asking me, who should we use for our broadband? And I'd worked with BT briefly, but they were atrocious. Their service was rubbish. They didn't look after the customers. They broke their promises to me and the customers. And then I was going to become something that they call a white ISP, which basically means a company uses my name to sell their services. And they wanted £1,000 for that, just to replicate a website, which is one click of a button for a company like that. And we're having a final discussion, and I'm starting to get quite cold feet about the £1,000 and negotiating that, when I said to them, when things go wrong, where does the buck stop? Because I realized it was my name selling their services. And they said, oh, don't worry about that. Things don't go wrong. And I knew very well that broadband and BT engineers who had to put it in at that time were not the most reliable, and things go wrong then, especially, all the time. And so I ran very quickly. And a week later, this lovely older gentleman came around the computer fair where we were exhibiting and left some information about a company that used independent representatives to sell their services and paid them very well, especially in an ongoing commission. And my eyes picked up at that when my son actually gave me the leaflet. I wasn't at that fair, I was at another venue. And I read it, I did some homework on the internet and saw the internet said, this company is really great, invest in them. Their customers were happy. And I phoned the guy up and I says, listen, come on over, I want to get involved. And that was a little miracle that I did without knowing what it was, because it was actually a network marketing business run by a British PLC company that had a great reputation. And over the years, from a bit of part-time work, I now have built an ongoing income that doesn't matter whether I'm in the country or out of the country. They put money in my bank account every month for work that I did in the past and some that I do now. And I have a team of people that I help to create that kind of ongoing part-time income that can actually become quite quickly now, because of changes the company's made, into a substantial enough income quickly to live off.
Wow. That's an amazing achievement, isn't it? So you've started up working with utilities. Then how did you get into writing? How did that come about? Because that's another big change entirely, isn't it?
The company is really hot, like many network marketing companies, on personal growth and personal development. And in the very early days of that business, one of the leaders said to me, get involved with growing, because you won't accomplish anything unless you grow at the same time. And he recommended listening to a guy called Jim Rohn. And I started reading a couple of his books, listening to his talks, and eventually made a pilgrimage to America, to Dallas, to see this man talk. And it turned out it was his last public weekend. After that, he got quite sick and died at the age of 80 something. But he'd actually been in like 15 or 20 countries in the week before that week, which was his birthday. And I finally got to meet who is considered a legend. He was actually one of the guys that found Tony Robbins. And he's considered a legend in the industry. And it put me on a path of personal growth. And that path grew to wanting to sit at the feet of some of the teachers and learn from them. The Secret had just come out. And I made it my desire to actually learn as much as I could from each of them, whether I met them personally if I could. Some of them I went back and helped them with their workshops to actually learn from the other side of the fence of talking to people and helping people.
Wow. And some of these teachers, you know, were they British or American or, you know?
Mainly American, some British. Bob Proctor I've met personally. One of my favorites who became, in a way, my spiritual guru was Wayne Dyer. A little miracle of connection happened because I was going to a workshop, a training in Maui, and I was reading Wayne's books a lot, all the time, anything I could find from him, and I realized he lived in Maui. On the first day, well, actually, I'd sent an email saying, I'd really love to meet you, Wayne. I'm coming to Maui. How can we do that? Can I buy you a meal? Can I come to a workshop? Whatever. Anyway, some probably keen secretary thought another nut that wants to meet Wayne, and that email, I'm sure, was deleted because it was never replied to. And I'm a bit disappointed. I'm on the first day of this workshop in a big hotel in Maui. And I said to one of the assistants, a young lady, who I didn't know at the time, I really wanted to meet Wayne here. I know he lives on Maui. And she took me by the hand, walked to the window of the hotel, pointed at the next condo and said, "Did you know that's his bedroom window?" And I thought, oh, well, I got close. That's lovely, isn't it? And nothing more was said until the last day, which happened to be my birthday. And it also happened to be a feast day for passing through these different 6 workshops, mainly NLP based. And she was a personal friend of Wayne Dyer. She was Lisa Garr, who ran a spiritual radio station in Los Angeles at the time. He's now a Hay House author as well. And she went and fetched Wayne, brought him. He gave me a copy of his new movie that was just released, The Shift, on a DVD as a birthday present, and then spoke to the group for 20 minutes. And she said afterwards, it was your intention that created that in a totally different way. But intentions like that sometimes, it's not the way we think that it will manifest. It comes in different ways.
Well, that's why they say be careful of what you wish for.
Yeah, really.
So then you've been in these courses, you're learning from all of these gurus, shall we say. How did you start up with writing your own book?
Another little miracle happened. I was on a course called Passion, Power, and Love, which was on New Year's, around the New Year's. And on New Year's Day, we climbed the Glastonbury tour and then went back and did a vision board workshop. And so I've just about finished my vision board, but there's 2 spaces left. And I'm thinking, there's 10 minutes left. What do I want to put in these last 2 photographs? And how am I going to get them? And I kind of almost said a little prayer inside, like, show me. And I got a picture that I wanted of China. I wanted to go to China for a while, and I thought, okay, I'm going to find a picture of China and put it on the vision board. And then I thought, what is the other picture? And Spirit said, this book has been in the back of your mind for a while. Find a picture of a book. So I went to the trestle table. Now you can imagine it. There's 40 people in this workshop and there's 10 minutes left. And there's a big trestle table full of magazines and people are just frantically going through the magazines, looking for what they want in the last 10 minutes, thinking, oh God, time's running out. I thought, how am I going to find what I need in this 10 minutes? And I picked up the first magazine that came to my hand without looking at it. It turns out it wasn't even a travel magazine. And I flipped it open, and the first thing I saw was a picture of the Great Wall of China with a message saying, explore new places. And my heart went, wow, thank you, thank you. And then I thought, okay, maybe I'm pushing it a bit, but what about the book? And I flipped open the same magazine in the number of pages further on. And the first thing I saw was a picture of 4 books.
Wow.
The miracle was China happened in about, well, this was New Year. And at the end of April, May, we went, myself and my partner went to China. And we did an incredible, beautiful, inspiring trip around China, a small group with a guide that took us the whole time, and guides for climbing the Great Wall of China, guides in Shanghai, and guides at the Terracotta Warriors. And the whole trip only cost £1,500 by a total miracle. And when I got back from that trip, I said, okay, what about the book? And a few days later, an email came through from Hay House about their writer's workshop. And I thought, okay, this must be it. I'll go to the writer's workshop. And that was where I committed to writing my first book, which was called Take Control of Your Spacecraft and Fly Back to Love. And it started as personal growth and grew. As I was writing it, I started waking up at about 3:30 in the morning, which interestingly enough was the time Wayne used to wake up. And I just had words flowing into me that just had to be transcribed. I wasn't me writing. And some of the subjects were amazing that I hadn't thought about writing. And one particular day, I got a message which really surprised me, which is called Death, the Ultimate Journey. And 3 days later, I found out Wayne had moved on. And so that is dedicated to him in the first book.
Wow. Wow. Synchronicity at its best.
Yeah.
So you wrote the book and then you set up Fly Back to Love. And then how's that journey taking you now? I know that you still have the free financially and work with utilities, but how's the books, because you do workshops and you do online workshops as well. I've saw some of your talks online. And you know, how's that shaped? Because you've just released another book, haven't you? You just released.
It's been a little while now. There is another book in my thought process, but the other book's now been out 2 years. It's a little more radical, but not as radical as it sounds. It's called Love, Sex, Nakedness, and the Divine. And in my view, those words have been so totally turned upside down by prejudice, by religion, and things like that, that somebody needed to put them the right way up. And there's some really beautiful, encouraging messages in the book that just flowed in, and messages about why we're going through rough times. It's called Revealing Jewels, and basically it's that purging, that battle is refining the precious jewel that is within our heart, and we come out of it as the beauty of an unfolding jewel. And we signed up for that process. That's something I believe. We signed up to be here so that we could actually show how much we want to be the love that we are.
I think that's one of the problems a lot, that, you know, the education system and the parenting, you know, but we don't teach parents to encourage children and to allow them to be free. The system doesn't allow that as well. So, you know, books like what you've been creating, they're fabulous to give as gifts to young people and to adults as well, to just show them that, you know, there's more to life than what you think.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The
So
Book of Love's my favorite because it's all the quotes from the first book, the juiciest, 120 of the juiciest quotes from the first book. And it's so simple. You just pick it up, flip open a page, and get a quote for the day.
Yeah, that's what I like about it, because you gave me one when I last saw you. So if people are watching this now and they wanted to get in contact with you, I know we can see on your backdrop it's flybacktolove.com. What about Facebook? Do you have a page on Facebook or any of the social media channels that people can contact?
Yes, I've got a number of pages on Facebook. There's one for each of the books. There's my own page, which is Keith Higgs 1.
Okay, so I can put those links up on the YouTube channel so people can contact you directly.
I run a Facebook group that I created called Awake Your Dreams. There's now 8,500 people in it, and there's daily posts on that from both myself and a number of other people. It's just restricted to spiritual, inspiring quotes or inspiring life quotes.
Oh, that sounds fabulous. Well, I mean, it's a marvelous story, isn't it? You know, despite all of the what some people may see as blockages, you know, your teacher saying that, you know, you were sick, your parents and you know, sort of casting you aside as such, and then joining this community, traveling the world, coming back, getting that financial freedom, and then writing your books, and now you're sort of doing what you want with your life, aren't you? You've got that freedom, not only financially, but emotionally and physically to be getting on what you want to do.
Absolutely. Now I travel a lot because, well, that quote said explore new places. And one of my passions is the ocean and coral reefs. And so when I can, I escape to a boat somewhere or a place with a coral reef. And I just swim like a fish. I am a Pisces, of course. So I swim like a fish in the coral reef and just observe and enjoy and breathe in the beauty. Although that's through a snorkel.
But that's the thing, isn't it? You know, so often we are trying to achieve something out there, when if we can simply just sit and be in our immediate environment, you know, outside or even inside, and just take that sort of moment to realize the miracle that is us for a start, and then what we're bearing witness to with our environment. I mean, it's such a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yes. I have a gift for anybody that's looking at this and is thinking about financial freedom, because in my first book, there is a section called Have You Found Your Golden Goose, which talks about a number of the ways to find financial freedom. And I'm sure at this time where a lot of people are being made redundant or losing their jobs completely or on furlough or working less, this could be something that could be useful for people. And at the end of that, on the online version, which you can find by freefinancially.co.uk, at the end of that section, which is wide, it talks about many different ways of financial freedom. There is a link to the website for the utility warehouse and the explanation of how you can have a part-time business and make money from it. And so reading that from the book is a gift, and there's actually quite a lot more that can be read for free through that link.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, and I'll put that link up as well, for sure. Well, Keith, it's been an absolute pleasure, and it's been quite a privilege, really, to be sort of listening to your whole journey. I'd love to see your teacher's face now. You know, I think that's going to be priceless. But thank you, and I hope to see you again really soon.
I look forward to that. Thank you, Jean, for your passion in sharing these things.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you. Take care now.
You too.